Today, I'm going to finish my reading of the moon, and thank you to Simon Schuster for publishing the book. The moon does not have air, water, clouds, rain, or snow. It does not have weather, but the surface of the moon does warm up or cool off. The ground gets very hot or very cold because there is no air to spread the heat. The temperatures in the daytime can be above the boiling point of water, but at night the temperatures can drop hundreds of degrees below zero. The astronauts' spacesuits kept their bodies at the right temperatures. The astronauts carried tanks on their backs that contained the air they needed for breathing. Without air or water, the moon's surface has not worn away very much. The surface has changed so little that it holds clues to the early history of the moon. The astronauts searched for these clues. They collected rocks and brought them back to Earth for scientists to study. They set up instruments to find moonquakes and to learn about other conditions on the moon. They photographed whatever they saw. And here's the astronauts working on the moon. Each Apollo crew brought back more information about the moon. The astronauts of Apollo 15 stayed nearly 67 hours on the moon. They returned with 173 pounds of moon rocks and soil. Scientists all over the world studied the information the astronauts brought back. They learned that the moon is about the same age as Earth, but the moon's soil and rock are different from Earth's. For instance, moon rocks contain no water at all, while almost all of the rocks on Earth contain a small amount of water. Scientists also learned that many millions of years ago, the inside of the moon was hot enough to melt rock. Melted rock, or lava, spilled over the surface of the moon. The lava formed lakes and then hardened. The solid lava became dark flatlands. This is a photograph of flatlands on the moon. All of the small pits were made from rocks from space that hit the flatlands after they had hardened. After millions of years, the inside of the moon cooled off. The lava stopped flowing. The moon looked then much as it does today. Its surface is covered with craters, mountains, valleys, and flatlands. There are very few changes on the moon today, but there are thousands of tiny moonquakes each year. This is a photograph of a giant crater that is about 50 miles wide. The crater was formed when a huge rock from space crashed into the moon and buried itself. The rocks on the surface of the moon exploded. You can see the mountain peak that is formed in the center of the crater. The explosion also created the crater walls. Rocks and dust scattered for miles in all directions. Take a look again. Apollo 17 was the last spaceship to carry people to the moon. It was launched in December 1972. The astronauts of Apollo 17 discovered the oldest rock ever found on the moon. Scientists on Earth tested the rock. They discovered that it was more than 4,500 million years old. They named it the Genesis Rock. Before the astronauts returned to Earth, they left a plaque on the moon showing the history of moon travel. They also left a feather from a falcon and a four-leaf clover. The feather and the four-leaf clover stand for the living things on Earth. Scientists have learned much about the moon from the Apollo space flights. They have found the answers to many questions they once had. For example, the moon rocks brought back by the Apollo astronauts help explain how the moon was formed. Scientists think that long ago, the Earth collided in space with a very large object. They believe that the moon was formed from the material ejected from Earth during that collision. But in science, the questions never cease. Did the moon have water once? Did it ever have a magnetic field like Earth? Much about the moon still remains a mystery. Earth and its moon are close in space, but very different from each other. Earth is a blue, cloud-covered planet filled with living things. The moon is a dead world. Without air or water, a cloud can never appear in its black sky, and a raindrop will never fall.